some of the win odds for them out of the gate here. Eagles, of course, at the top. Their over/under set 11-5. The Commanders 9-5. The Cowboys 7.7 out of 5, and the New York Giants 5-5. Division winner, the Eagles, the favorite at -160, followed by the Commanders at 225, the Cowboys at +7, and the New York Giants at +3,000. And we look at last season's record. The Eagles rattling off basically 10 out of 11 wins after starting 2-2 to finish 14-3 en route to a Super Bowl. The Commanders surprising everybody, going 12-5. That's not the surprise. The surprise is the NFC Championship game that they managed to rattle themselves off to. Cowboys finishing 7-10 after the Dak injury when they weren't doing so hot when he was there either. And the Giants, well, they're going to be the Giants at this point. But they did have moments. They did score 45 points in a meaningless game that cost them a top early pick. So there's some silver linings everywhere you look at it. But
good for them, right?
right,
Congratulations.
congratulations, right? Drew Lock had the best game of his career, and it moved you a few spots, which I guess you know what it worked out in a way. They got Abdul Carter, so I guess it worked out as of now. But Kelcey, you wanted to rip the Band-Aid off. We're gonna let you lead the way here on the NFC East from the bottom to the top. Let's hear how you have it shaken out.
Yeah, so here we go, right? If you guys missed my announcement earlier this year, you know I cut the Cowboys from my life, cut the plague off. I didn't cut the one guy, and I just want to throw this out here because I think it's the coolest shirt I've ever gotten before we get started. And I do mean ever gotten. And it's my guy. Kickers are people too. It's Brandon Aubrey. It says butter on it, which for a fat person, I don't know if there's a better name on a t-shirt to have than having something that says butter on it. And why do I talk about the Cowboys first? Well, that's because I have them as the worst. And not just bad, but real bad. I have the Cowboys going 3-14. I think it's time to just
the scoreboard there. My goodness.
Look, I had to get out of this, right? I saw the writing on the wall. This team does not look any better. Yes, you've had Javonte as a running back. You added George Pickens. What does that actually do for the offense? Not a whole lot, it turns out, because you still have the same problems. Your head coach is your OC. Is that going to work? I don't know. Never worked before. Very rarely works where you have a head coach that's an OC. First-time head coach, is he going to handle this team well? Micah wants out. CD might be leaving as well just because of how that works in Dallas. Feels like a sideshow, and it feels like we're in for a ride if you were a Cowboys fan. So good luck to you guys. But yeah, 3-14 is where I have the Dallas Cowboys finishing. And fun fact, 2 of their 4 wins does come in the NFC East, though. 1 against the Eagles and 1 against the Giants, because inevitably they always split. It's just how it works in the NFC East. But yeah, Cowboys 3-14. So there's your Band-Aid ripping off. So sorry, Brandon Aubrey, but there were no bets for you either, so I couldn't even pick you to be the leading point getter for the NFC East because that's a complete possibility as well. But
all right, you know what? You're definitely shaking things up early. Random side note, too. The Chiefs are trading Sky Moore to the 49ers for absolutely nothing. Nothing to do with any of the teams we're talking today. Just thought I'd throw it out there since it just popped up. And that does not help the Cowboys at all. Who you have them basically in contention. They're in the Arch Manning if he comes out. If not, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller type Cade Klubnik sweepstakes at this point.
Yeah. This is it's no longer about the players anymore. Like the players there's not a lot of high level players outside of 3 positions on this team. And that's terrifying as the Cowboys, but it's at ownership now. Like now it is literally on the ownership. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. What you did in the offseason after being all in, this team's not good. There's no reason I should feel more faith about the Cowboys than I do about the Giants, who actually had what looked to be a good offseason. Now I'm going to move up on my list and go talk about the Giants for a second because I have them at 5-12, so not great, but it's better than the Cowboys. And if Nate's listening, yes, Nate, I'm sorry I didn't pick him to get 7 wins, but you know what? You got 5 wins. It's an improvement of 2, and despite that, you know why you got an improvement of 2 is because you didn't take Shedeur and you took Jaxson Dart. I think Jaxson Dart will be the guy at the end of this season. There's going to be a period where you don't know if it's Russ, you don't know if it's Jameis, you don't know if it's going to be Jaxson Dart. Maybe start with Jameis and then go Jaxson Dart. But you have Malik Neighbors still. That's a lot of positivity. And you mentioned it with the Giants when you did your short. They have a pretty good defense. That's like as long as they can get to the passer, that defense can actually hold it down well enough to get their offense on the field to hopefully score in plus territory. It's going to be a slugfest with the Giants, though, when it comes down to it. They're going to split one with the Cowboys. I have them pulling another win out over the Commanders in this one in this season. So, yeah, it's a situation where it's not going to be great, but you're better than the Cowboys at least. And that's just the nature of the NFC East, right? The Cowboys will have a down year every 5 to 7 years. The Giants will have a little better year than the Cowboys, and the Giants will go to the top of the division eventually, and then the Cowboys will be like second and middling, and then the Cowboys will dominate for a year, and then, oh, wait, here come the Eagles and Commanders again. They're back. So, yeah, so ripping the Band-Aid off at 3, I have the Commanders. But I don't have the Commanders going 12-5 like last season, that worst to first situation, or worst to second, and which, by the way, I got to say, we both gave them a lot of credit last year, and everybody looked at us like we were idiots. I just want to say that we called this. Jayden had a weapon in the bag, and yeah, it worked out.
You
really
called
well.
it more than I did. You definitely got a little. You gave him a little bit more spice than I did. I was a little didn't expect Dak to fall apart, so I thought it'd be a little closer. But hey, it surprised a lot of people sometimes when it hits, it hits.
And it's going to hit right, but unfortunately this year I have him going 9-8, so I don't have him continuing that pace. It's still good enough to be second in the East. Do they make the playoffs? That's a much later conversation. But I do have them going 4-2 the division. But the reason behind the 9-8 is I look at this team as not getting a lot better. Yes, you got Debo, but what does that actually mean? I don't know yet, because we've seen Debo not play, and the team's more effective that he's on than when he does play. I do think this defense is not bad. I still have not fallen for this whole Frankie Louvu foolishness. I don't know whether he's actually good or he just Troy Polamalu's it. I don't really know what's happening here. And that's a discredit to Troy, because at least Troy got into the bunch of rings of honors. But yeah, the Commanders 9-8. It's just not like a situation where it's like a fault of anybody. Jayden just is going to be in year 2. Everybody's going to figure him out. I don't have him rushing for as many yards. I don't have him doing a lot of the hard work that he had to do last year. And it's just that learning year, right, for him. This is his learning year. We see it year 2. I talked about it with CJ last year. We saw it. He didn't necessarily regress, but he stayed stationary, and that's where I worry the Commanders cannot afford Jayden Daniels to be stationary after what he did last year. I think they need him to be exceptional, and that's the difference here. If he's not exceptional, the Commanders are still going to be good, but they're not going to be great like they were last year. But that gives me
that's fair. That's hard to follow up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you had a wonderkin season. Like, that doesn't happen in the NFL very often. And then number 1 in the division, the Eagles, 13-4, 4-2 in the division. You see his theme there. Everybody beats up on everybody in the NFC East. Yeah, it happens. This is what happens. The Eagles are still darn good. I don't know what they're putting in the water in Philadelphia, or how he got at the University of Florida, whatever degree that was. I need to go back and get it, because that degree is insanity when it comes to picking up players and picking up a team that wants to win and wins well. This team from top to bottom, and you even start including second stringers, it might be the deepest well of good players in the NFL. Like, the Chiefs in the AFC have a great well of players, but it doesn't feel like they're as deep as what these Eagles can be. And the fact A.J. Dillon's possibly third string running back for the Eagles, a guy who was really the most effective third down back Green Bay had in a very long time, and now he's with the Eagles looking great in the offseason. It's a hard time you look at the Eagles and think they're going to get worse. I do have them one worse on the loss column. Okay, you're 13-4. You'll be fine. You win the NFC East again. So congratulations to buck the trend. It's a situation where I have the Eagles just so good. It's kind of like the Chiefs have been recently, where they're going to drop a couple extra games here and there. They're still going to be that team to beat until they get beat. And I think that's where I have the Eagles 13-4. So just to recap, Cowboys, bottom of the division, 3-13. Giants, 5-12. Commanders, 9-8. And the Eagles at 13-4.
All right, relatively chalk minus that, bottom one, a little bit of surprise there at the throwing a nuke there on Dallas Nation, but you know what? I think a lot of them might not hate that because they'll hate it when it happens, but they might not
Oh,
be too concerned about it come April.
it's
Like, come April.
there's a phrase that I refused to use when I was a Cowboys fan, but I'm going to use it this year. It's definitely their year to finish dead last.
But not just dead last in the East. They need to finish dead last at the
I,
conference. Like, if
I,
they're gonna finish
I
last, they
flat
gotta do it right.
when I say dead last, and this is a non-spoiler, maybe it is a spoiler. They are the worst team in my picks this year for all 32 teams. They are dead last. They would have number 1 pick next year.
They're gonna be awful for Arch or awful for Aller, depending on who comes out of that point. My goodness, maybe they put Stack on the trade block. You know what? There's a lot to visit if this does happen, and that for sure. That is one we're gonna keep an eye on. You know what's funny is some of these we have the same, some of them are vastly different. This division is we are both by a long shot. So I'm gonna rip mine off out of the right now. At the bottom, I have the Giants at 5-12. Same record as you do. Same reasoning. I think Jaxson Dart is starting by October. I think Russ is gonna play fine, just not quite good enough to get wins. I don't think he's gonna be
Hmm.
bad. He might even play good sometimes. He'll have a random 70-yard moonball touchdown. They just won't be able to quite win. They just won't be able to quite get it done. So we're gonna 5-12 building year. Next up, I have the Commanders also at 9-8. So, you know, similar records there. The Commanders are weird because on the one hand, I could see them winning this division and going 13-4. They're the Texans, but East at this point. Because I think they can do that, or I can see them going like 7-10 and everything regresses. But we're gonna stick them in the middle there at 9-8. They had a lot of really close wins last year. We can see the net points 94, not a huge margin, and 391 points allowed. That was the second most among teams with a winning record. And I mean, the Bengals were the one above them, so we don't even that winning records will throw it with a pound of salt at that point. They were incredible last year. Fourth down, 20 of 23 for 87% on the season. Third down, they were sixth in the NFL at 46%. Like there was a lot of Dan Quinn threw his you know what's in the wheelbarrow and threw him out there, and it works incredibly. But I don't know if the cojones are gonna be able to carry over quite as much. And they had all those defensive woes and were so good offensively, and then they added to the offense in the offseason. And I'm still not sure what's gonna happen with Terry. I'm not sure about the running back spot. Still 9-8 because I still think Jayden Daniels is awesome. They're still gonna be very good. They're still gonna be fine. So 9-8 is where I have them at. Still a
same,
playoff caliber
same,
team. Next up,
same
I
record. We're good.
exactly. Next up, we have the Eagles at 10-7. I think they're going to be very good still. You did lose your offensive coordinator. I do worry that you were once again changing the offensive coordinators. I do wonder if are you going to be able to use the exact same formula you had last year to the exact same extent? We will have to see. At defenses, we know how they adjust in the offseason. We remember the Wildcat when that was a huge thing. Teams adjusted, the read option. Defenses adjust, so I want to see. I think the Eagles can adjust, but there's when you keep switching offensive coordinators like that, 3 different ones in 3 years. I'm curious to see how that carries over. Everyone's coming for him now too. There's a difference between going after the Super Bowl and being the champion. Teams gonna that's why nobody ever repeats hardly ever outside teams with Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, basically. You need an all-timer there while having Andy Reid or Bill Belichick. So I have questions there. They still have a good young defense. I'm worried about the loss of the veterans. Guys like Darius Slay, who maybe they weren't the most productive last year. It was Quinyon Mitchell was CB1, but then you're losing the veterans there. CJG, I'm just calling him Chancey. Chancey Gardner Johnson. He's not there anymore too. So I think a lot of rotation. He's in, he's out, he's in, he's out with the Eagles. He'll be back next year. Then we'll pick him to win the division again. Then we're sticking with the old and tried true classic. Nobody has won the NFC in back-to-back years since half of our audience wasn't even born. It's been since like 2003. So we're sticking with that. And I'm putting the Cowboys at number 1 in the division at 10-7. We're going the polar opposite of Kelcey,
Wow.
partially to spite him, but also because I. When's the last time that the Cowboys were really disappointing coming to the year? A couple of years ago, when a lot of people were like, "Yeah, they're at the bottom of the division."
Who are
They,
you asking? Are you asking the Cowboys fan in
the
the
not
room or the
I'm
former
going with the
Cowboys fan in the
general
room?
consensus, not you directly, because with
Yeah.
you directly every year, it's different. So
I would say the
the general
Cowboys fan,
consensus,
the real Cowboys fans would say they've always been terrible going into the year. The fans that say this is our year, yeah, they'll be the ones to be like, oh, we're great going into the year.
we don't count
Every
those
year.
ones. We're talking about the normies around here, not even the Cowboys fans, just the normies from afar. When they have lower expectations, when they seem to do really well. Remember when they drafted Travis Frederick? Everyone's thinking, "What are they doing?" 12-4. Des caught it. So on and so forth. I think last year 2-7 at home. I don't think that's going to carry over as well. I know Dak was hurt last year. Micah Parsons missed, I think, 6 games. CeeDee Lamb was in and out a little bit. I think that's gonna stabilize. I would feel much more comfortable. This was initially 11-6, but since they still haven't figured out the Micah Parsons thing yet, I did pull a win from them and tossed it back elsewhere. So I do think if Micah was signed, I feel a lot more comfortable about this. I made these picks. We made these picks about 4 weeks ago. So I was hoping Micah would be done by now, but I still think he's gonna end up there. I think this is just Jerry being dramatic. I think Micah's going to end up on he's gonna end up playing sooner than later. When Dak's healthy, the offense clicks. They have a host of running backs that, as a whole, will be better than the sum of their parts. Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue, they'll all find a weird role that'll work.
Deuce
The
Vaughn
wall Deuce Vaughn might even get out there too. The wall of
should
Tylers,
be
I
the
think,
number one.
should get some burn. The wall of Tylers, I think, is going to be very effective. I like George Pickens as a receiver too, opposite CeeDee Lamb. Since CeeDee Lamb's been there, they've had trouble finding somebody to take a little pressure off him. George Pickens, if nothing else, you could throw him alley oops when he's one on one. That's the one thing he's done very well in Pittsburgh, and I think in Dallas he's playing for some money now too. Dak's good at throwing
Mm.
those ones in the air, so I think that'll make Jake Ferguson. I have a lot of questions. I'd feel much more comfortable if Micah was there when we made these picks, but I'm gonna stick with it. I think Micah will get done. And their draft class was actually quite outstanding when we look at it, in my opinion. Donovan Ezra in the second round, Chevelle, the corner in the third round, who could have been a first round talent without injuries. I think that defense is gonna be a lot. If Micah's there, I think it's gonna return to like top 12 for him. If he's not there, you're probably looking at like 18th. I think Donovan Ezra will help with some of the pass rush. You got Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland both healthy for the first time since they both started being decent. They decide to trade years when they get hurt. They're both gonna be out there. Yes, I know there's the whole they get it's either a pick or a touchdown the other way. But those picks, you get the ball back to Dak, I think they'll be effective. So I think they're gonna be the weird third to first team. I think they're gonna just considering the trend. So I'll just recap it quickly. Giants at the bottom at 5-12, Commanders at 9-8, Eagles at 10-7, and Cowboys getting the tiebreaker themselves at 10-7.
I have a question because you mentioned this when you got to the Eagles. You said that it takes a special quarterback, an all-time legend like Tom and Patty, to go back to back or to even appear in the Super Bowl again. Well, when you
Well,
add in
so
the fact
they're
he's
the recent ones to do it.
right. Oh no, I get that. But if you factor in how hard it is to win the NFC East twice in a row, and then the Eagles potentially getting back to a Super Bowl, if the Eagles can do that, not win the Super Bowl, but just get back to the Super Bowl and win the NFC East, do we have to change the narrative on Jaylen?
I don't. I already said he's QB5. I've already said basically 5 through 10 is pretty fluid, and right now
Just
he's number 5.
outside
But
of
as a
like
whole, yes, the
specifically,
narrative should be unless he goes like unless he does a 2022 Daniel Jones and throws like 15 touchdowns and just gets pushed in for 10 touchdowns. I think he still has to be Jalen Hurts. But
Mhm.
I already have him at QB5. I think he's right there. I think he's right on the outside of those other 4 guys that we all kind of have the similar top 4 in that regard. I think he's right there right now. So, yes, as a whole, the narrative should change if they pull that off and he doesn't 2022 Daniel Jones it. He has to still be an effective quarterback.
Yeah.
You can't be that inept at quarterback like that guy who shall not be named for the 3rd time in the last few sentences. So, there's a statute of limitations he will have to meet, but considering how he's played in his career, I'd imagine the overall narrative would change, assuming they do even what you did, 13 and what you had him doing, 13-4,
Yeah.
probably making some noise, and I do think they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. I don't think they'll be able to let Saquon lead the league in touches again. I don't think that's very likely. I think they're gonna have to air it out a little bit more, which
Yeah.
in result will boost the numbers a touch. So I'd agree with you.
Yeah. No.
I think the narrative's already he's up. I think he's top 5. I think until you've established yourself as immovable, 5 through 10 is very fluid, and he's the reigning Super Bowl MVP. So he is locked in there at 5 for me.
Yeah, I always question that. Like when I was going through and making this, I'm like, is Jaylen good enough? And I've said this since Jaylen came out of college. He is an unwilling runner. And I think once people get past the fact that the tush push happens, if you ignore the tush push, the amount of times that Jaylen runs for positive yards successfully is actually not that many in a game. He doesn't actively choose. It is a last situation. He's going to take the yardage. Obviously, with Saquon there last year, we always questioned like, hey, will it be good enough passing for AJ to be happy, for Devontae to be happy, for Dallas to be happy? Like, what will that all work? Turns out, yes. The answer was yes. Jahan Dotson, odd man out, but everybody else, yes. I think this year you're going to see, like you said, Jaylen has to pass the ball more. And I think for me, why I had them higher up is I have Jaylen showing that passing ability that he showed at Oklahoma and he showed at spurts at Alabama. And we saw early on in his career as well, where it's like, oh, this dude actually knows what he's doing, especially in the 2-minute drills when he's able to basically see everything, call it out as it's happening. I think we're going to see that evolution for him, but I also think this offensive line, they're going to get that full evolution of everybody's now been in their position. Obviously, the Landon thing does hurt. There's no question about that, but I still think there's the evolution there. And then, oh, guess what? You have the greatest save all of everything, and Saquon's still back there. That is, if you're passing the ball well, yeah, if you're passing the ball well, Saquon is going to be Saquon even more than he was last year. Like, everybody's going to go into the game, okay, we got to stop Saquon. Well, as soon as you get punched in the mouth for 2 60-yard touchdown passes, what are you going to do? The answer is, okay, well, we got to go cover these receivers. All right, well, that leaves a gap open for Saquon somewhere. And now you start playing around with the cat and mouse game. And I think if Sirianni and this team can figure it out, I think it's hard to beat these Eagles teams. But I also see where you're coming from. I can see where the situation is where they get 10 wins, 9 wins. But for me, I take that as more of the anomaly than it is the likeliness for this team. Like, for me, the likeliness is a much higher win total, but the anomaly for is like a possible 9-win team, especially if, you know, the Landon thing comes back to bite them, another offensive lineman goes down, Jaylen doesn't look good passing the ball. Like, then, all right, well, 9 wins might be a high mark for them. But, yeah. And then the Cowboys, I get it. If everything goes right with the Cowboys, yeah, this team could win 10 games. But I think that's their capper. I don't know if you can go higher for the Cowboys. So I think where you went is just kind of like the causality of everything else. That's how the Cowboys end up on top. But, yeah, I don't know. This division is really weird where I'm like, I don't love everybody. But I feel like the Eagles have the stranglehold here. And until I've proven otherwise, I don't know.
It's funny because last year you and I had completely opposite views of the Eagles, but they were both spot on accurate. The results just went, we had very different results, but we had the same thought process, basically, especially when we talked about the young corners getting there compared to the old guys, the change on the offensive line. I put them in the Super Bowl. You had them as doo-doo butter. And we ended up both being right because while they didn't play the young guys at first, it was doo-doo butter. Then once they did play the young guys, like I had suggested, then it took off. So I think we're in a similar boat with them this year as well. For the record, too, 10-7 and 4-2 in the division is a pretty good season. Like, that's a compliment to Jalen Hurts and the team that's considered almost blasphemous. And for the Cowboys, I've been going 5-1 in the division because Dak historically just plays well against the NFC East.
That's fair.
He has butchered the Commanders and the Giants his whole career, and he basically splits with the Eagles. So I think when he's healthy, I think that is where you'll get half of those wins. And the Eagles' schedule, we looked at it. You got outside the division. You got the Lions, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bucks. There's a lot more. There's not nearly as many cupcakes. They don't have the Browns on there in week 4 with Deshaun Watson at quarterback or anything like that. They have a lot less Weenie Hut Juniors to deal with.
Let's be fair. The Cowboys have never done well against Cleveland.
Oh, no, I was talking about the Eagles don't have that this year. Like,
that's
the Eagles.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, the Cowboys, when they do play the Browns, don't even have that going for them. But yeah, no, the Eagles don't have to worry about that.
Exactly. So we've talked a little bit about the predictions. Now let's talk a little bit of gambling with these ones as well. So we're going to take a look at some of our favorite bets when it comes to the NFC East. I'll go and start with mine. We got one for each team for a futures bet. I'll run through mine quickly. We got the Cowboys going over 8.5 wins. We even went up from their total of 7.5 because I think they're going to get 10. So we're going to get plus odds at plus 130. Giants, not a whole lot to love there, but I do love me some Malik Neighbors at 1150 receiving yards. He will hit the over. He has 3 quarterbacks better than the trash that he dealt with last year. So it's only up from here. The Commanders, not a whole lot to choose from because of their tomfoolery at receiver, running back, etc. But we do get 1 touchdown in every single game at plus 145. We're going to take that. Dan Quinn's love of not kicking it and going for it on 3rd and 4th downs will pay off. Then Eagles, the spicy one that we both actually agree on, but you kind of hope it doesn't happen for fantasy purposes. Saquon Barkley under 10.5 rushing touchdowns. He's hit 11 rushing touchdowns twice in his career, including last year. He's going to be, even if he's good, the chances, if he keeps getting tackled at the damn 1-yard line, it's going to be the Jalen Hurts scenario again. And unless they completely take that out of the offense, which they won't. So I think even if he is awesome and does not miss a beat, the Madden curse, the rushing title, the fantasy, all of the things working against him don't happen. It's history proves against the chances of him cracking 11 rushing touchdowns. So even if he's awesome, that's still a high bar to hit. People don't understand that's quite a few rushing touchdowns when your quarterback's going to get 13 on his own.
Yeah. No, I actually want to start there for my bets as well, because I like your bets. But I think the Saquon thing is important to mention because I think you're right. I think yardage or touchdowns wise, it's it's already hard to get 10 touchdowns. It's even harder when you are guaranteed within the 3 yard line and 3 yards and in. It's going to be the Jalen Hurts tush push. And honestly, Jalen and Saquon's lucky to be out of there. I'm still waiting for them to snap it through Jalen's legs to Saquon. I'm still waiting for that moment. And just like a
And then
back
he's gonna
end, like,
throw it, and he's gonna throw
yeah,
it too, like his LT. They're still gonna avoid the rushing touchdowns at all
yeah.
costs.
I am still waiting for that. But no, I do think you're right. That was originally my pick as well, to go under on the touchdowns. But because you went there, I pivoted. I'm staying with Saquon for my pick for the Eagles, but I'm going with the over 1375.5 yardage. And now I think this, for me, it's rushing yards for the season, total rushing yards for the season. Yes, I'm thinking for my fantasy team, but I'm also thinking for everybody's fantasy team who took him within the first 7 picks. I think this guy is one of the best 20 to 20 rushers we've ever seen. And I mean, from outside of the 20 to inside the 20 on the other side. His ability to snap one off at any given point is probably one of the more outstanding things I've seen from a recent running back. And his ability to work his way through the trash in the line of scrimmage and in the second levels, I think that's a really impressive feat of his. So for him, when he touches the ball, I'm expecting 6 to 10 every time, not 3 to 5 like I do with most running backs. There's maybe 5 you can say that you can expect that from in today's day and age. And Saquon fills to me at the top. So I think even if he doesn't get as many touches, if he's averaging 6.5, 7.5 yards a carry, which is a crazy number in the NFL, but not unreachable for somebody like Saquon, especially if this Eagles team is passing well. I think that's an opportunity for him to go with that over 1375.5, which is a minus 114 odds, which actually all my odds are pretty much identical in every pick I have this year. But that's because I stayed pretty simple with this one and went over-unders on yardage just to be on the safe side.
Before you go any further, you want to hear the most insane stat that backs up both of our points to a T with that one? So as far as the highest yards per rushing touchdown last year, Saquon Barkley led the league at 31 yards per average touchdown of his 13, with 403 total touchdown yards. The highest in the league by a lot. The next closest is Kyler Murray at 25, who had 5 touchdowns, for example. Where the lowest was guys like Roshan Johnson, Nick Chubb, who had 1 yard carry touchdowns, basically. So to the point, Saquon's going to score. He's going to have to break it, because if it gets inside the 5, it's not going to him, it's hard to get 11 touchdowns of over 30 yards. So to make our point even clearer.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing, especially as like I've owned Saquon the last 2 years in fantasy leagues, and it's one of the toughest things to watch, because you're like, just give him the ball. He got it there. Just give him the ball. But yeah, so I have him over 1375.5 for minus 114 odds. I'm going to move in the downward order of my picks from now on, and my next one is the Commanders. I'm going Jayden Daniels. I said I didn't have as many yards for him this season. Well, it just so happens to be under his yardage total for rushing this year. Under 675.5 for it for minus 114 odds as well. I think he's great, but at the same time, I think this is one where you're going to have more teams keying in on him, and you also have the Commanders looking at him like, let's not get you injured. Let's pump the brakes on this. We saw what happened when you did have an injury last year. It wasn't beautiful. Let's pull that back a little bit. Let's not go down that road. And that's where I think he's going to be the under this year. I think they're going to keep him around 500, 550 in the regular season, and that's what's going to cause it for his rushing yards. So under 675.5 for Jayden. Next up is the Giants. I have Malik Neighbors over 7.5 receiving touchdowns. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. Malik Neighbors might be the top. He's top 5 receiver, and I think he might be number 5 or 4 when he's in the red zone. His ability to separate and get up, it's hard for any other team. And what's crazy about this number is in the top 5 for me, I also have 2 Bengals. So, like, all right, well, hey. But I think Malik Neighbors, his ability to just go up and get it is impressive, and his ability to separate in tight spaces is also impressive. His footwork is absolutely outstanding for a receiver. And so whether it's Russ, who knows how to throw in tight windows, except for in the Super Bowl, whether it's Jameis, who will literally just throw it to anybody, and then whether it's Jaxson Dart, who is the same exact way as Jameis, except for he can see 20/20, as long as he doesn't get the eye black in his eyes. Malik Neighbors should get over 7.5 for me. And then Dalton Kincaid. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Moving ahead too far. My bad. Last but not least, going to the Cowboys. As you know, I just don't even want to talk about them anymore, it looks like. Dak Prescott. This might surprise some folks, given what I gave them their total for the wins on the season. Over 38.75.5. And If he's healthy all season, he's an empty calorie quarterback. It's easy money if he's going to be healthy all season. I have to make these picks based on the fact I think he's going to be healthy all season. He's going to be a Cowboy all season. So give me that 38-75 as a lock with George Pickens and CD, because either one of them, I think you give him the ball and let him see space and see what happens. So.